Welcome to this published authors show. My name is Kenneth Muyingo, and with me I have a special guest that I will be interviewing. First, I just want to mention, if you watch this interview and you would like to write a book yourself, there's a link with the interview for you to join the group, become an author, and write your first book, to connect with like-minded people who are doing the same. And with that said, I would like to get into the interview by asking my guest to say hello to our viewers and listeners and to introduce himself.
Hi out there. My name is James Rickard.
Awesome. It's James Rickard.
Right.
Very nice. So tell us about yourself. If somebody's watching this interview and they would like to know more about James Rickard, what can you share with them?
Well, I live in West Virginia right now. I was born and raised here, but I lived in Pittsburgh for about 20 years, over 20 years. But I moved back, and after I moved back, I decided to write full time. I've always written off and on throughout my life, but now it's more of an all-time thing I do.
Amazing. So you say you have written on and off in your life's journey. When was the first time you started with writing, if you remember?
Oh gosh, I was afraid you were going to ask me that. Okay, I was about 7 or 8 years old. Basically what it was thinly veiled fan fiction. But I would watch television in the evening at night, and if I didn't like the way a story ended, I would write my own story. And I would basically use the same plot lines and just change the names of the characters to some of my friends and maybe just a little bit my own. But anybody that knew what I watched the night before would read it and say, I know what he's doing.
Wow. And that was when you were about 7 or 8 years old.
Right, yes.
That's amazing.
Well, see, the thing of it is, a lot of people don't realize I also started reading comic books at this time. And probably by the time I was in 4th grade, I was reading at a 6th grade level. So I didn't know how to spell a lot of words. I probably drove my parents crazy, asking them how to spell this or that, because I didn't even know how to use a dictionary yet. You know, I hung in there and kept on writing. And like I said, I've written my entire life.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And so when do you eventually publish your first book?
I published my first book. Well, I wouldn't say book. I published my first story when I was 23. And that was kind of a goal of mine because at that time period of my life, my writing hero was F. Scott Fitzgerald. And he published his first story when he was 24, but I made it 23. But I didn't publish my first book until probably about 2 years ago.
Wow.
And in the meantime, I wrote short stories, or a lot of short stories that weren't published. I did some blogging. I wrote and edited a newsletter at the company I worked for, so I kind of kept at it. I had originally, when I was in college, I majored in journalism, and I kind of carried that over my life. But when I was there and had to major in journalism, I also had to study photography, and I really like that. And it's kind of like it was a bad scene because I'm kind of drawn toward a lot of different things anyway, neat things, and photography was one of them. So photography kind of pulled me away from journalism, and so I never really got a degree in either one. But I eventually went to photography school and got some kind of certificate that I completed and all that kind of stuff.
Wow, that's amazing. And I see, or maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I see that photography really connects well with writing. That, you know how they say, you've had the saying that a picture is worth 1,000 words?
Exactly, Kenneth. I agree with you 100%. I mean, some people look at me and my life and say, man, what were you doing? But it was really a logical progression for me.
Yeah.
And and like you said, one picture's worth 1,000 words. I saw a picture not more than an hour ago of the town I lived in 1910. And it was incredible to see that many people, but also, this is a really small West Virginia town. It was also incredible to realize it's like how little the basic outline of Main Street has changed. Because I can say, well, there's this building, there's this building, there's this building. So it was neat though. But you know, seeing that picture was, to knowing what I know, was a lot more impressive than what anybody could have written.
Amazing. And what's the title of your first book that you published?
The very first book I published was a book called Grandpa Wore a Six Gun. It was a first-person Western, and people always say, well, how can you write a first-person Western? But I handled that real fast. What I did, I made kind of a prologue to the story, and you mentioned that my grandmother died the other day, and we were going through her things, and found the diary of the family black sheep, and this was his diary, and the story takes off from there.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of did something like that a long time ago. I didn't realize it when I wrote the book, but I wrote a short story called History Bites the Bullet. And it's a crazy story to give people an idea of what's like. It's like I was inspired to write the story by the first time I saw Little Big Man. And if you've ever seen the movie Little Big Man, you know where I'm coming from. But I wrote it years ago, several years. I think it was back maybe in the 70s. And it was right after Roots came out. So the idea was, I said in the story that I was searching for my roots. And then I updated a while back and included that in a short story collection. And so what I did, instead of just saying I was looking for my roots, because I figured, well, nobody's going to relate to that, I said I was doing the 23andMe thing. And after, well, 23andMe, it's the same idea, but it's more modern.
Yeah. And that was History Bites a Bullet, the short story.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And what inspired you to write that?
You know what? People ask me a lot of stuff that, what inspired you to write that? I don't know. Because what it's about, it's a story about Billy the Kid. And I caught the guy who really shot Billy the Kid. Because what this is, it's a guy is riding with Billy the Kid. Here comes the way of working the title. It's like he gets shot in the knee. And so he's biting on a bullet while Billy the Kid tries to take out the bullet from his knee. Yeah. Except the bullet goes off and shoots Billy the Kid. And so, hence the title, History Bites the Bullet.
History Bites the Bullet. Wow, that's a good one. And
yeah,
how many books have you published in total?
I'm sorry, go ahead. Can you repeat that?
How many books have you published in total?
I published 4 books, and I'm currently working on a 5th.
Wow. Can you tell us the titles of the 4?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I have them right here behind me.
Amazing. I love this.
I was ready for that. See, some people would have a little list here, a post on the side, but I didn't do that. I didn't have time. Okay. Here's my Grandpa Wore a Six Gun.
Yeah.
First one. And then I have a series with that character Charlie Hobbs, Charlie Hobbs. And then I have this one called Treasure of the Ant People. It's a little bit more science fiction. It begins as a Western and kind of goes into a science fiction-y feel to it. It's still a Western, but I mean, it's far and away not cowboys and aliens, let's put it that way. Yeah. And then my next book was this one, Once Upon a Time with Grandpa. I wrote this one entirely for myself. It's a crazy story about how again, I kind of related history a little bit. It involves Butch Cassidy, and also there's a scene in there that has John Wayne, John Ford, and let's see, and oh wait, and Wyatt Earp, and it's a crazy story, and this guy Charlie Hobbs, it has, it's later in his life now. It's like it's 1928, so you can't keep writing westerns. Okay, and so what this is, he's kind of become an investigative journalist, and he's investigating the story of Butch Cassidy, and in some ways, I put a bit of truth in there also, because there is a guy in that time period who said that he was Butch Cassidy. And there's always that mystery of, did Butch Cassidy really die in South America? Because they found two guys, but they couldn't find any definitive DNA evidence that it's really Butch Cassidy's Sundance Kid. So I made up a story about, when they're having the big finale, the big gunfight there at the end. I made up a story about how the Sundance Kid met his demise, and then how Butch snuck out, and Butch snuck out basically by trading clothes with one of the soldiers, and got out like that. And then this is the last one I did. This is called The Old West, The New West, and The Weird West. And the title says it all right there. It's a collection of 12 stories, and it's just to give you a hint of what it's like. I started out with a story called Gumdrop that I kind of like, and people say, again, somebody asked me, where do you get the inspiration for that? This was an inspiration from a French movie that I saw. And the thing of it is, it's a modern movie about a bank heist, and these guys were hanging out at a friend's house. And that's about all I really understood, because you know how, like, a lot of foreign movies, especially French movies, are kind of symbolic. And the movie ends, not the story I wrote, but the movie ends with a really, really far shot in a field. The camera is panned way back, and then I don't know why it is, but then you see one of the women in the story. She's in the middle of the field. I think she was naked. I'm not 100% sure of that. I mean, the camera's that far away, but she's like with her arms all spread out, her head back, and the sun is shining on her. So I don't know what that means, but anyway, that's the way that story got inspired. And there's a story in there called The Army Way. It's no big deal. Now, The Real West is kind of interesting. That's a really old story that I've written, but that one was a bedtime story for my son when he was a little boy. So, the things I've done with my stories are just, out of this world sometimes. Let's see. And then we jump ahead to, those are all Western stories. Really the Old West, and then we get into the New West, which I really enjoy. Some people call them neo-Westerns. Let's see. Movies, let's see. No Country for Old Men was basically a neo-Western. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some others, but they escape me right now. But anyway, I wrote one called The Culvert, and basically that was it was definitely not a true story, but it talked about me when I was a kid. My cousins lived next door, so they're in the story. My mom and dad. And the only big thing that happened that's true in that story is that there was I was just a little boy when this happened, so I don't have all the ins and outs. But there was an escapee, a prison escapee or criminal, something, I don't know. But anyway, he escaped, and so there was a bus way over the hill from us, and so I had him hiding out there, and my dad finds out that he's there, and he's walking around with this pistol stuffed in his belt for like 24 hours, all that kind of stuff. So I thought that was kind of cool. That part was true, where he took the pistol in his belt. Now, the way it really happened, in the story, I'm like 7 or 8 years old, something like that. But the story is much different in real life. I was really, really little, like 3 or 4, maybe 5, and there was an escapee or something. And so we lived in the country. And I remember my dad did poke his pistol down his belt loop because, you know, I am so old, we didn't have indoor plumbing. And so he had to go to the outhouse, and my mom didn't want him to go. And he says, well, I'm not going to pee out the porch. And so he had to go out to the outhouse and took the gun with him. So that was kind of exciting right there. And I've never forgot the imagery from that. I said, I've got to put that into a story. Wow. And then I get into the Weird West, which is kind of cool. Now, I have History Bites the Bullet is one story in there. Another one called Justice on a Hot Day. Justice on a Hot Day. Now, I think maybe I overdosed on the Twilight Zone when I wrote that, because it's basically a story of an innocent man who is almost ready to be hung for the murder of the sheriff's daughter. The sheriff's out of town, and the wife turns up dead, except the guy who runs the hardware store where they get the rope is named, I think his name is Willie, and he's actually the murderer, okay? But he's, you know, provides their rope for them hanging, all that kind of stuff. But and he says somewhere along the way in the story that I got this rope from the Indians, you know, American Indians. They say it's see, I'm trying to think exactly the way I phrased in the story. I forget how it was, but anyway, it's been treated by the medicine man, and so the story is all over with, and somehow the rope breaks when the main character is supposed to be hung, and you know, everybody says, "Oh man, okay, cool, the story's over." Story ties in, title ties in, okay. But what happens? Then Willie picks up the rope and looks at the rope and goes, I don't understand this. And his hands start to shake, and then the rope goes around his neck. You know, he gets hung. And so that is the justice.
Wow.
And then I wrote a story called Line Rider, which is 50% true. Now, line riders were a hard-nosed lot in the Old West. And what they would do in the wintertime, they were the guys who would go in on a guy's ranch, and they would patrol, guard, check on, however you want to look at it, the guy's property line, hence the name Line Rider. Okay, and so this guy goes in there and becomes a line rider for a farmer, no big deal, rancher, no big deal. Okay, this is where the truth comes in. He has some religious ties to his mother, and so in remembrance of his mother, he tries to tack a calendar up on the wall that has a picture of Jesus on it. And so then he goes out. Here's okay, the truth really comes in here now. Okay, it's back on the bed. But he says, yeah, no big deal. I guess I didn't do it right. And so he, pounds it a little bit harder, puts it up there, goes out, comes back in, it's down again. Okay. Then later that night, the room gets really cold, and he notices some kind of presence in the room. And so he doesn't know what the heck is going on. He just, how it is when it's cold. You just snuggle on the covers and go back to sleep. But the next morning at breakfast, he says to his buddy, "What were you doing in my room?" And the other guy says, "I wasn't there. I don't know anything about it." And the way that part is true, I don't necessarily believe in stuff like this, but I had a friend several years ago who was a minister. Okay, and he had a similar situation. He went to visit a friend out west, went to tack up a picture of Jesus on the wall. It fell down. Okay, he went out, came back, fell down again. Next morning, he says, "Hey, man, what are you doing in my room?" The guy says, "I wasn't there." So Yeah, right. Whoa's right. And so I said, I got to put that in a story. I mean, I love that story, you know. I mean, like I said, I don't necessarily believe in that kind of stuff, but like when a minister tells you something that weird, I mean, surely a minister would be on the level, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So, um, but like I said, okay, Rich, tell me the story. Tell me the story. I mean, he relayed that story to me, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 times because
yeah,
I wanted to burn it into my mind. I never knew what I would do with it as he was telling a story to me, but I knew it was a good story.
yeah,
And I mean, like, I mean, you know, I mean it like a story. It doesn't have to be a Western, but you know, like there are so many weird movies and stuff you see these days. I mean, that little bit right there would make a really good movie or something. I mean,
yeah.
it's just, it's there.
Indeed. I sense that you are a great collector of stories.
Yes,
And
I am. Yes, I
and
collect stories, and sometimes it's like I will keep things in the back of my mind, my back pocket, however you want to look at it, for years, and then all
yeah,
of a sudden, boom, it
uh,
explodes into print.
yeah,
Like one example is in the first book I wrote, Grandpa Wore a Six Gun. There was talking about property lines. There was a berry bush at our property line, and so my sister and I would go down there in the summer, and we would pick berries. Except our dog went with us, and so I'd eat a berry, she'd eat a berry, the dog would eat a berry. There's a funny little story. And so I kind of worked that into my Grandpa Wore a Six Gun. It's
yeah,
a highly fictitious story, but I put just a few little true things in there. It's like, see, the main character was born in 1870.
yeah,
Okay. That's after like the big gunfights, most of the big gunfights and stuff like that. But still, there's a lot to be said. And also, you see, I had a grandfather also who was born in 1870.
yeah,
My dad's dad. Now he died before I was born, but still he was born in 1870 and he didn't die until 1953.
yeah,
But can you just imagine the kind of history a guy like that would see? I mean, think about it. It's like the advent of the telephone, electricity, World War One, airplanes. Just well, and
yeah,
in 1953. I mean, gosh, even World War Two, the atomic bomb.
yeah, yeah. It's, I mean, it's just, I mean, it's just a period of time that there's just so much that happened,
Yes.
and and for him to have just experienced all of this. And I'm thinking about the journey you shared with me from you started writing from back when you were 7 or 8 with the stories that you would watch on
Right.
television, and then you would change the story when it didn't end like you liked, and you made your own
Hmm.
ending. And
Right.
the journey that you went on with journalism. And I'm curious, what would you tell me is the one thing that you can point to that you say, this is the thing that has had the greatest impact on me writing books?
The greatest thing that that has the most impact on me is, try to make it creative plus with a grain of humor. Because even when I write stories about where somebody dies or something, and that can be a real tragedy, and I don't dwell on that. It's like, it's like, I don't make these long death scenes.
Yeah,
Just, you know, I don't just say the guy dies. I mean, I can
yeah,
pull it out just a little bit, but I mean, I don't, I mean, I'm not full of myself. I'll tell you what, though, Kenneth, I don't think that people read my stuff for that, and
yeah.
that's one of the reasons I don't dwell on a whole lot.
I
It's like
see.
I'm working on a story right now called the Windmill Portal, and the death scene goes for maybe, you know, type page, written page, printed page. It's always a little different. Probably no more than a half a page or something like that.
Yeah. And that's called the Windmill Portal.
Yes. Now this is 100% science fiction. I mean, it still has my Charlie Hobbs character. He's still an investigative journalist, but what he's and he's married, and he's going on his honeymoon, and he has a flying saucer sighting. Okay, and then what it is, he decides he's going to investigate and see if there's a link, because he's working with a magazine, investigative magazine now, and they want him to see if there's a link between his sighting and a sighting that was supposed to be in Texas in 1897. Okay, and it was at a windmill. Okay, here's where the title comes in now. Okay, and there was a windmill there that's. It's in Aurora, Texas, if you want to look it up. Yeah. And so a flying saucer crashed into a windmill, and you say, well, how did the flying saucer get there? Well, I am into UFOs a little bit. Okay, and I do believe this thing about portals, you know, and all that kind of stuff, you know. And, you know, it's like instead of paper being like this, it's like this, you know, hole to hole. That's your portal right there, kind of like a hallway. And it really cuts down the distance. And so that I decided that there's going to be a portal right there beside the windmill, and that's how the flying saucers get here. But in 1897, when they come through the portal, they don't know there's a windmill right there. Yeah. And that's how the madness ensues.
Wow, very creative. It's and what I sensed, you, like I mentioned, you really have you sort of like have it easy with coming up with stories. If somebody's watching this and they find themselves sort of stuck or lacking in stories and imagination, what can you share with them from your experience?
Okay, what I would share with them, gee, you make me sound like I know what I'm doing, but what I would share with them is pay attention to everything, because you never know when something happens that, like I said, I have stories in the back of my head, in my back pocket, whatever, you know. You never know what is going to be a story. You never know when it's going to be a story. People say, how do you get these names even, you know? Well, it's like, I'm kind of a nerd. Like, it's not something I do consciously, but like I will watch the end credits to a movie, and I will take one guy's first name, the guy's last name, put them together. Or when I'm driving down the highway, I see a neat road sign, a neat road, you know, a road name. Say, hey, I'm going to include that in the story. Like there's a road around here that I haven't included yet, but it's called Indian Fork. I mean, someday I'm going to be stuck for a road in a story. There it is, you know. And so you never know what those little tidbits you say are going to do for you, but they're important to have. It's like another thing I saw one day. It's like I was sitting down the street in a park bench, and there's a bar across the street from me. And I see two guys coming back, and they've got a big cart. They're pushing an empty cart. I don't know why, but you know, it's like you know, the alley's all gravelly, even though it's paved. You know, it's gravelly and stuff. So it's like you hear this rumbling before it gets there. And so then you see this guy. It's like a Mutt and Jeff story. They're both dressed in total black. Okay. Black socks, and they're wearing boots, okay? You know, lace up high top boots, but they're you know, shorts down their knees, and the shirts are, let's see, one guy was wearing a t-shirt, the other guy had a black tank top, if that makes any sense. But before they went in, they had to, you know, stand outside and smoke a joint. And so That's gonna be in a story someday. I just know it because it's like, you know, like I have my notebook there, and so it's like I was writing it down as it was going on, you know, the weather, you know, how they're dressed, all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, you know, I mean, it may be 20 years, but it'll be there. It'll be in a story.
Wow. So the secret is just paying attention. You never know what will turn into a good story.
For me, yes. And the thing of it is, it's like I have a really, not really, but maybe like a really hard time just winging it with a story, you know? It's like everything is kind of a grain of truth, or you know, or there's something to it. It's like a place I've been, you know. Okay, or maybe just what was the town, whatever town is, you know. Okay, what was this town like, you know, like 100 years ago or something like that, you know. It's just go with it, you know. And it's like, you know, once you get just a little bit of factual information in there, the details, you know, the little details kind of work for themselves. It's like and it's one in my book here, the last one I wrote, you know, the Old West, New West, and Weird West. It's like I have a story in there called Civil War Parallax about the Civil War, and this town where I live is allegedly the first land battle of the Civil War. It's also called the Philippine Races, and it was really it was a fiasco. There's 400 Confederates, and I guess maybe the federal forces didn't know there are only 400 here. They came in, reports say, I can't believe this, I'm just appalled at this, with 3,000 troops. But that's what they say, 3,000 to 400. So okay, fine, it's like a 7-to-1 ratio. And anyway, it's like then I started reading the details of the story, and I said, okay, what if this happens? What if this happens, you know? And next thing I know, I've got a story. It's like, you know, there's a big landmark here in town. It's our covered bridge. It's one of the, I think, maybe 2 covered bridges in the United States. Is still on a major highway system, something like that. I don't know, but you know, I mean, this bridge was built right before the Civil War, 1852. And so I have you know, some of the you know, Confederate forces running back saying, there's too many, get back, and that kind of stuff, you know. So I said, well, okay, yeah, I'll put that part in there, and you know, most of the other stuff is true. Or sort of true.
I see. And you mentioned the
yes, the Windmill Portal, the one I'm working on right now. Yeah, that one's taken me a little bit longer to write because there's like no true parts in that, other than the fact that you know, there was a possible flying saucer sighting in 1897 in Aurora, Texas. But everything I've got to come up with these same ideas, the details. You know, I mean, I've got to explain what it's like inside a flying saucer, what the portal looks like. And I mean, it's really a big undertaking. Now I can't say that I'm sorry I started it, because it's like, it's really kind of at this point, it's become more of a challenge than anything else. It's like I'm 3/4 of the way through, so all I've got to do is tie up some loose ends and stuff. I've basically got the story. You know, I mean, you know, but everybody has. See, I subscribe to a theory that I picked up from Stephen King. When things get really weird, crazy, or dicey, everybody's got their own opinion of how things are. So everybody's got, if anybody knows what a portal is, they've got a little bit of their own idea of what a portal is. Everybody has their own idea what a flying saucer looks like. And so I thought maybe to write science fiction, I had to, you know, come up with something like, you know, describing what the scenes out of Blade Runner and stuff like that. No, I mean, people have seen Blade Runner. They have their own idea of what a futuristic society looks like. So just say there are pipes all over the place and go from there, or something to that effect, you know?
Yeah.
Or like, there's something about the flying saucer. I said, oh, there's a lot of lights on this one panel, and he didn't know what they were for. And then I just go from there because everybody else has an idea of what the lights do, how they look, that kind of thing. So, you know, I mean, just hit it and go.
Yeah, yes, most definitely. And this is really inspiring. Thank you so much, James. If somebody's watching the interview and they would like to buy your books, where can they access them?
They can get them on Amazon. I'm exclusively on Amazon. They can search by the title. Now you can't just get on Amazon and go by the title. That's probably the best thing to do. No. I tell you what, the best thing to do is just Google my name, or not Google. You know, in the search bar. Now on Amazon, I go by James L. Rickard. Okay, because there's already just a James Rickard on there. Okay. And this kind of separates me from him a little bit. And so you got to remember that's James L. Rickard. But they're, you know, all four of them are on there. I've got a couple short stories on there too. And, you know, I mean, I try to make everything a fun read, and I don't make them too long. But in my stories, I like to put a little twist in there. It's like, you know, the guy says, oh, wow, man, I didn't expect this, you know. I said, yeah, well, it's like life isn't all fun and games. I mean, I may make the story 95%, you know, I wouldn't say funny, but 95% devil may care, and then put a little zing in there. Say, whoa. It's kind of a,
exactly,
just a little bit like that's kind of a surprise.
Yeah. Well, very nice. We will put the links for the book with the interview so that people can access them directly when they watch the interview.
Okay, great. That'd be a big help. I appreciate that, Kenneth.
Indeed. And if somebody watches this interview and they would like to connect with you and continue this conversation, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey, thanks for asking. I do have a mailing list. It's real easy. It's jamesrickarewrites at gmail.com. And then, of course, I do a lot of social media also. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. Let's see. I do Pinterest. I'm on Blogger. So I'm around.
Very nice. We will put those links as well with the interview so that people can connect with you. And just one other thing, this was very inspiring. Thank you so much, James. Is there anything else that you would like to share that we have not been able to address in the interview that you would like to mention?
Not writing, but I do want to say that this has been a lot of fun, and I think you're a great interviewer. I've done this before, and so I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, and I will sure be keeping in touch with you, James.
Thanks a lot. Bye now.